What is going on, everyone? Today we're going to be doing bulking episode 10. Now, if you've been following my progress throughout, you probably know that every now and then I like to do a bulking update. We are officially 10 weeks in, so without further ado, roll the intro. And before we go any further, please be sure to comment, like, subscribe, all of that good stuff if you enjoy today's content. Now with that out of the way, let's get to the video. Just a quick disclaimer, this will be the second to last update video. After thinking about it and kind of just going off of how I feel and the progress that I've made so far, I feel like the 90-day mark is probably where all of this ends. That's going to be about 20 days from now. So we're going to keep this going for the next couple of videos. I'm thinking maybe 2, maybe 3 more episodes for the bulking series, and then it will officially be done. With that said, there will be one last update that will kind of track my progress from start to finish, and that'll be the final video. I do have a couple of things planned in my mind. One is going to be a full day of eating, because it seems like a lot of people enjoy those. Another one, I'll save that for later, so make sure that you're, subscribed and following the series as things go along. Now let's talk about my physique. As far as my physique goes, I've been noticing some changes for the better and the worse when it comes to the bulk. You can see in the pictures here, I've been using my cell phone to take pictures every single day, and day 1 to now, even though the lighting isn't great, you can definitely see some significant changes, particularly in the lower love handle area. That's typically where I carry the most fat, so I'm not too surprised to see that. And I will say that even though I'm sitting at about 156-ish pounds right now as I'm speaking, I think this is probably the leanest I've been at that weight. And overall, I feel like the biggest difference that you can see from the before and after pictures is probably in the abdominal area, right? The shoulders look maybe a little bit fuller, the arms are looking a little bit bigger, but typically, again, that's where I see the most fat accumulate from the bottom up. So that's okay, but I don't want to take this thing too far to the point where I'm essentially obese or carrying a ton of additional body fat. That wasn't really the purpose of the bulk in general. And if you are looking for something to compare this to, if you looked at my videos like 3 years ago whenever I first initially began posting, and then took about 4 different breaks in between then and now, you'll definitely notice the difference between probably the face, because I feel like looking back at those videos, I was sitting at about 175 pounds, and I just feel like I carried more weight in my face. This time around, I'm a little bit leaner, but maybe it's just the facial hair. Who knows? But overall, in person, I have seen, the muscle bellies that I have developed are getting a little bit bigger, so it feels like the bulk is working to at least some extent. Now with that said, if you have seen some of the previous update videos, you probably remember me talking about my weight fluctuating. Same story here, it really fluctuated the last 3 weeks or so. At one point I was up to 176, fell down to 174, and then the last time I weighed in, it was about 175.7, I believe, something around there, right? So just under 176. However, I'm not too surprised to see this, right? Weight's going to fluctuate, and it's possible that I just have more sodium one day before a weigh-in versus another. And I do believe that even though I have seen some changes in my physique, there's probably some of that weight coming from water weight as opposed to just, building muscle. And as I've said previously, I just wanted the weight to gain slowly but surely, and that way I can kind of start working on, not just building muscle, but strength gains. If you saw my video on Tuesday, then you probably know that I managed to lift a new PR, so there has been some progress seen through the means of strength. And if you haven't checked out the video, please be sure to do so. I think there's, some good content in there, and it's just exciting to see people hit new PRs. But for the sake of this video, I'll go ahead and post a clip that I got with my phone here. As you can see, I managed to deadlift 445. This is a pretty big difference from where I had started about 3 months ago. If you've been following the channel for a couple of months, then you probably know that I was slowly trying to develop some deadlift strength, and really the heaviest weight that I seemed to be able to pull was about 415. But for a couple of years, I was pretty much stuck at 405, and I seemed to have that sticking point where I just couldn't get over it. So all in all, 445 is about a 40-pound increase from my initial strength videos where I was struggling to repeat the 415 that I had previously lifted. Then I managed to get to 415, 425, and the next marker ended up being 445, so can't lie, I'm pretty happy about that. And you know, feeling weak was a big motivation to go ahead and just move forward with the bulk. I didn't want to get too fixated on my physique. I felt like that was something that was starting to happen a little bit. So instead of getting, you know, fixated on just being lean year-round, I wanted to see if I was able to bulk and gain strength, particularly on the big three movements, which would be squat, bench, and deadlift. And while I haven't actually done a 1 rep max for my bench or my squat, I will say that I've managed to move more weight even when I'm doing reps of 12 to 15. Typically, I believe my weight was somewhere around 225 for about the last year when I was doing squats, and if I was doing that 12 to 15 rep range. But now it's closer to like 275, which is also a pretty big jump. Bench has been kind of the weak point. I haven't really been focused on that as much, so I just haven't really prioritized it. But even that has gone up pretty significantly. I was struggling to hit 255 for one, and the last couple of workouts that I've had, you know, bench has been in my program, so I've managed to actually hit 255 every single time I go up to try it. And if you're interested, my total max PR for bench was 275, but that was touch and go. Inside of an actual powerlifting competition, I've managed to hit 265, the difference being that for a powerlifting competition, you actually have to come down and pause for 1 second. Then you get to press, and that counts for your rep. You also have to be on point with all of the cues that the judges are calling out. So when you unrack, they'll tell you to go down, hold, press, and rack. All of that to say that I've definitely seen some significant strength gains, or at least consistency in my strength gains the last couple of months, especially the last 2 weeks. So overall, I'm feeling pretty good. One thing that I will say as far as, you know, the cons go for the bulk is eating calories has been a little bit of a chore for me, especially now that I'm closer to 3,000 calories every day as opposed to 2,900. It might not sound like a big deal, but I think the extra 100, just if I get left over with 50 or 60 calories left, I'm trying to find things to eat, and I think that's starting to affect me a little bit mentally. Don't get me wrong, it could be a lot worse. And I do think the fact that I'm doing this mostly with whole foods definitely makes it a little bit more difficult because it's a lot of volume to eat, which again can affect you mentally, but for the most part, I can't really complain. And a part of that is one major issue, and that's the fact that I really lack variety when it comes to my meals. I typically eat the same thing over and over again, unless it's dinner. And maybe you've seen this in full days of eating. It's pretty consistent, pretty similar, but you know, the purpose of the full day of eating is really more a vlog-centric type full day of eating, where I'm doing a full day of eating, but I'm also doing other things outside of just eating. And a lot of that boils down to the fact that I'm kind of a creature of habit. I like eating the same things and going through the motions, but whenever you're doing it in larger quantities, it definitely becomes more difficult to sustain that, you know, momentum. For me personally, kind of just having the same thing and a good routine dialed in allows me to kind of be on autopilot and not think too much into the fact that I'm increasing calories, full, or bloated, or whatever it might be. And speaking of bloating, that's definitely been an issue from time to time, right? Like, I do drink a lot of water. It's typically no less than a gallon, but realistically more like 1.5 gallons on a day-to-day basis. And with all of that water consumption comes, you know, kind of just feeling a little uneasy, especially as my calories have begun to increase throughout. But overall, getting over the humps of, you know, feeling stronger and, you know, seeing the physical changes, I feel like the pros, for the most part, outweigh the cons. You can get over the mental part and even feeling full, but feeling bloated and full all the time is eventually going to catch up to me. Now, just to be clear, I don't think that everyone should go on a bulk, especially if you're just starting out. I feel like most people probably should focus on losing fat, even if you're, you know, skinny fat. This is just my opinion, and the reason I say that is because if you're in that position, you probably want to lose the body fat that you have on your frame. And if you're new to working out, you're going to see what's called Newbie Gains. Newbie Gains are just gains that you get whenever you first work out. You're essentially getting muscle, and it's one of the few times whenever you're working out where you can gain muscle and lose fat at the same time. And it's relatively easy to do. In my case, I think that this bulk has kind of worked out pretty well, especially compared to previous ones. Not just from a strength gain perspective or an aesthetic perspective, but just from the perspective of like feeling like I was in a rut, going through the motions and not really being motivated to work out. like I was whenever I first got into this. It was like having a hobby stripped away from me and kind of losing interest in it. And getting into a bulk kind of gave me the motivation to, essentially not just put on fat. If I was gonna put on muscle, I was gonna eat more, but I also had to lift more. And adding purpose to anything that you do in life, especially weightlifting, is way more motivating and gives you a reason to kind of push through those dog days where you really don't feel like lifting. So anyways, that's going to be it for today's video. If you enjoyed today's content, again, please be sure to comment, like, and subscribe. Most importantly, if you did make it this far in the video, I appreciate you. I do put time into actually editing and creating all of this, and a lot of thought does go into what I'm creating and when things are released, so really do appreciate it. I'm going to call the video here, but until next time, keep it together.